the first of 6, I can calculate the inflation rate and explain what it means. Inflation is one economic performance measurement, and it measures the change in the price level of goods and services throughout the economy. And when there's inflation, that generally means an increase in the price level of goods. Deflation would be a decrease, although sometimes we talk about a negative inflation rate. That essentially would be deflation. Now, something to keep in mind regarding inflation is it's not just the price of one good going up, it's the price of most goods throughout the economy going up. A good way to think about it is that it's a change in the cost of living. So if you were to buy these same goods this year, same amount this year that you bought last year, if there's inflation, you would have paid more overall for those goods. The Consumer Price Index, the CPI, is what is used to measure inflation. Generally, there are other indexes as well, but the CPI is the main one. Another thing to keep in mind regarding inflation is that when there's inflation, the purchasing power of a dollar is less. So let's say there's one particular product that's 50 cents and you have $1, then you can buy 2 of those goods. But if there's inflation, let's say the price of that good goes up to $1, and now you are still holding $1, now you can only buy 1 of those goods. So the purchasing power of a dollar is less or weaker when there's inflation. The inflation rate for the United States year to year, our goal is between 0 and 3% a year. Inflation is not unusual. If there's a little bit of inflation year to year, that's expected and that's not a bad thing. Now let's get to calculating the inflation rate. So a way we can ask this question is, by how much or by what percent did the price level change from, say, 2009 to 2010? This would be measuring the inflation rate for 2010. By what percent did prices overall change from 2009 to 2010, or the cost of living change from 2009 to 2010? The way the inflation rate is measured is through the Consumer Price Index. And at the left here, you can see the CPI numbers for the United States from 2004 to 2012. These are the actual numbers. And it's just a number. That's not a dollar figure. It's not a percent figure. It's just an index number. And the next learning target will derive that number. But for now, we'll use those numbers to calculate the inflation rate. And between 2009 and 2010, if we look at the CPIs for those years, the CPI in 2009 was 214.5. The CPI in 2010 was 218.1. The way we can ask this question is, by what percent did the CPI change from 2009 to 2010? And here's the way we would figure that out. Take the CPI from the later year, 2010, which is 218.1, minus the CPI of the earlier year, 2009, that CPI was 214.5, divided by the CPI of the earlier year, 214.5, times 100 to put it in a percent form, and we get 1.67%. So the inflation rate in 2010 is 1.67%. There was a rise in the price level from 2009 to 2010 of 1.67%. The cost of living went up 1.67%, however we want to say it. Here's the generic equation. The inflation rate for year 2 would be the CPI of year 2 minus the CPI of year 1 divided by the CPI of year 1, because we're trying to figure out that percent change from year 1. Some things to keep in mind regarding the causes of inflation. Think about supply and demand, one cause of inflation. Overall, throughout the economy, demand pull inflation. An increase in demand pulls up prices. Another possible cause, cost push. An increase in input costs are pushed on to consumers in the form of higher prices. That's like a decrease in supply. Wage price spiral. If prices go up, typically employees ask for higher wages and they get them. Well, at higher wages, that's a higher cost, and the price is going to go up even still as supply decreases. Well, prices go up more, and when prices go up more, the cost of living is higher. What do employees often do? They ask for higher wages to cover that increase in the cost of living. Wages go up, and same thing over and over again, that wage price spiral. Wages go up, That's higher costs, supply decreases, and businesses try to cover those increased costs by having higher prices. And then a last one is excessive monetary growth. We'll talk about this later on, but excessive monetary growth is an increase in the money supply, and the Fed has control of the money supply. If the money supply increases, then that usually means higher demand for goods and services, which would push up prices. All right, as far as learning target 1, stop and think, pause the video here, and answer this question. All right, if the CPI in 1997 was 175 and the CPI in 1996 was 170, what's the inflation rate for 1997? We want to find how much the CPI changed from 1996 to 1997, so 175 minus 170 divided by 170 times 100, and we end up getting 5%.